Hello, beautiful friend. I am so glad you are here. Today's video is a really special conversation with one of my dear one-on-one clients who has been on a deeply personal journey of connecting with her spirit guides through the work that we've done together and the life journey that she is currently on. If you have ever felt curious about your divine team, your spirit guides, if you have sensed something around you but didn't know how to fully trust it, or if you've already experienced connecting with your spirit guides and you've already been exploring that connection, but you're feeling like there's something more there, this conversation is for you. Kelsey and I are talking about what it's really like to open that channel. Not just the beautiful sacred spaces that we journey to on these soul journeys, but the emotional and spiritual and even practical shifts that unfold when you start receiving actual guidance from your spirit guides and the divine team that is always guiding and supporting you from the unseen realms. I'm so excited for you to hear more about her experience. So let's dive in. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Ditto.
I feel like you've been on such a deep spiritual journey, but also
Mhm.
such an expansive, inner, real human journey as well. And it's been such a gift to go on that journey with you and to
Mhm.
witness you in all of the unfolding. Um, and I'm excited to share a piece of that with others who may just be getting to sense their guides or feeling a curiosity and a tug to lean into that and explore that more. So, before we dive into all of the
Mhm.
magic and get to hear about your journeys and your experiences, would you just share a little bit about who you are, what drew you to this work initially, or what was calling to you at that time?
Sure. I'm Kelsey Clark. I live in central Pennsylvania, with the exception of a few years. I'm a lifelong Pennsylvanian. I love it here. It feels very much like home, and I think it mirrors some of the homes that I've had in past lives. Now that I've started to explore that realm. Um, so been practicing yoga and meditation for about 15 years. I've been teaching those modalities for 13 years. I'm also a Reiki practitioner. I started receiving Reiki, probably it was in 2019. And then I had my first level of attunements in 2021, followed by my level 2 years ago in 2023. So I feel like I've been tiptoeing around the work that you and I have been doing for quite some time. So that just sort of it felt like a natural flow, a natural progression into the spiritual work and exploration that I've been doing with you. With that said, I feel like that spark and that channel, and that interest and connection has lived in within me for as long as I can remember. Back to imaginary friends who I now recognize, one in particular as one of my guides. Um, and sadly, when I expressed some of those inklings of connection as a child, um, they were very quickly dismissed. So I sort of tucked that part of myself away for a really long time. I could feel its presence within me, but it was like it was tucked in a box that I never opened, like an old cedar chest in the attic. Um, in the last several years, I had been practicing yoga for a long time, and then several years ago, and I feel like this all contributed. I started working with a holistic physical therapist, so I did a lot of physical healing, from old injuries and then from pregnancy and childbirth, and that sort of rolled into mental health therapy, and I did that for a bit, got to a really good place, sort of took a break, discovered Reiki. And then about 2 years ago is, I think, when this much deeper awakening began. And I returned to therapy to support myself in healing from some childhood trauma and situations. And that led to me setting some very firm boundaries with loved ones. And that certainly stirred the mental, emotional, and spiritual pots within. And I just took a deeper dive into Reiki and yoga. I went even deeper into those practices because they had always been so healing to me. And I think it's important to share this. How I found you specifically was through a dear friend of mine that I did my 500-hour yoga teacher training with and practiced yoga with her. She's also a Reiki practitioner, but she is based in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm in central Pennsylvania. So in February 2024, she provided Reiki services to me. And at the end of our session, she said, "Your guides are trying to get through to you. I can feel them trying so hard to get through and connect with you and make their presence known. Please be open to that." And then a week or two later, she said, "Hey, you have to do this online past life regression with me. Just do it." I said, "How?" It's a Saturday afternoon. Fine. I don't have anything else going on. Even though I was getting ready to make a big geographic move from Western Pennsylvania to Central PA, I'm like, no, no, I'll do it with you. It ended up she could not attend live. She had a family emergency arise. I attended live, had just the coolest experience with you, felt such an instant connection to how you offer this work. So I signed up for your wait list for one-on-one sessions, thinking, who knows when she'll have availability. And you opened spots like a week or two later, I got the email and I was so excited. So my first container began last spring, and was tremendously supportive as I concluded um, that particular container of mental health therapy and moved to my new town, my new home, my new life. And it was so supportive in the transition. And I just keep coming back for more because it just continues to be supportive and aligned and just a tremendous touchstone for the very human part of me.
Mm, wow. I often say that like our healing and awakenings are so deeply intertwined. Like
Hmm.
our healing journey, like when we're like really going deep in our healing journey, it often will spark the spiritual awakening and vice versa. Like those who are on like deeply spiritually curious paths, the deeper you go there, it will spark the need and the awareness
Hmm.
of the healing that must happen in order to continue that work, right? Like they're so deeply intertwined. And like your life journey and especially in recent years, your life journey is such a beautiful, powerful reflection of that. The deep healing work that you've been doing as a human being, living this very real human experience in this physical
Yes.
dimension, and also as this powerful, profound, infinite being who, like you were saying, has always had such a clear connection. Even when you were a tiny little child, you
Hmm.
knew it was there, right?
Yes.
And then to allow yourself to really like be delving into and awakening that, just such a
Hmm.
beautiful reflection of that.
Yes.
So I'm curious, before we began this work together, before we really
Hmm.
started dropping in and journeying and opening that connection with your guides, how would you have described your connection with your guides? Or even your sense of like whether or not they were with you?
Yes, I remember as a child, my one particular guide who is kind of always at the forefront and very present, and I can very seamlessly connect to that guide anytime now. Um, I can clearly identify that he was like an imaginary friend that I had, in that developmental phase around the age of 4. Um, and then I grew out of that and was just a kid, um, but a kid experiencing, the very human experience of family dynamics, social dynamics, I would say the outer world instead of the inner world. I was pulled into that outer world. And I think in so many ways encouraged to disconnect from the inner world. So I did because I think, the inclination is often to, when you're in those elementary years, those, ages maybe 5 to 10, 5 to 11, the inclination is to be a good girl or a good boy and do what you're asked and follow the expectations and the rules that are set forth for you. And I did that to a T for a really, really long time. But even then, I remember being 11 or 12 and laying on my back at dusk in my family pool and looking up at the moon and the stars. And it was so crystal clear and just feeling this very deep soul connection to not the outside human experience, but my thread of connection to something far beyond the human experience. And I very clearly remember expressing that and being admonished for it. So I sort of shut it down quickly, but I so clearly remember that. And I think that is what probably that spark just sort of simmered inside until I was living on my own, um, away from loved ones whose expectations I felt I had to live up to. And I found yoga. And I think that spark found its avenue through my yoga and meditation practice to slowly but surely, it's a process, but slowly but surely present itself again. And then I think for many, well, I only want to speak for myself, but for me as a woman in this lifetime, motherhood really brought forth the desire to reconnect and change and be my most authentic, vulnerable, and true self. Um, at the time for my daughter, and now for both myself and my daughter's daughter.
Mhm. Wow. Were you that spark, that connection has, like, always been there, the knowingness of more of what is there in the unseen realms and spaces?
Mhm.
The the point where you were, like, right when you and I met, your friend had told you, "Oh, Kelsey, your guides, like, they're trying to come through so deeply." Did you feel that? Was there this, like, sense and connection with your guides, or was it just something you were like, "Yeah, I don't know what this is like, but I've heard of spirit guides, I know they're there." Like, what was it like at that point?
It felt like, yes, it felt like, oh, I know there are guides. I know there are, these words like guides, guardian angels. Um, I had read a few of the books by the popular authors that really write and speak a lot about this in a more mainstream manner. Um, so I knew of it and was very drawn to it. But for the folks that I had, read their works or heard their, public talks about this sort of work, I didn't feel a connection to it. It something just felt like, that's not the right fit for me.
Mm.
Um, and I thought this is one of those things that can't be forced. It's sort of like when you go to your favorite yoga class and with, a teacher you just adore and feel very safe and connected to, and then a sub walks in the room. And it's like, it's still going to be a fine 60 minutes well spent, but the connectiveness is not quite the same. So I was looking for that connectiveness for someone to guide me into this work.
Mm.
Like the vibe had to fit.
Totally. It's that intuitive knowing, right? Like, we just
Right.
know. Like, you know when you're ready for something, you know when you found someone who's, like, your person, like, there's just an intuitive knowingness there. So, okay, so we started this work together, right? You
Mhm.
started dropping and connecting with your guides. What is it actually like? And now you've been doing it for a long time, right? Like, I mean, at least a year, right? What
Yeah.
is it actually like to drop in and connect with your guides in these sessions? What is it like in your body, in your mind, in your soul? Like, what is the experience like?
Yeah. So I think I was actually thinking about this yesterday, and a little bit this morning, like, what is it like? How would I describe it to someone? And the thought just occurred to me because I didn't have the words for it. And the thought just occurred to me as you were asking that question. Your guides really meet you where you are at and in what avenues you're able to connect. That was my experience. So for me, being a Reiki practitioner, when I and very attuned to Reiki when I began working with you, my guides first showed up as colors for me. Because that's how that was something for me during Reiki that was very common. And then I also began to experience different body sensations. Um, and again, that was very familiar to me and not unsettling because I experienced that during Reiki as well. Um, and I feel like as the more I connected with guides, um, the more their messages would be echoed. If I worked with my oracle cards a bit after meditation and did a draw, the cards that I would draw would reflect what my guides had said. They also started communicating with me often um, through angel numbers, and they still do that quite a bit. Again, that was something I was more familiar with when we began working together. And do you remember last year when I was getting ready for the move? Deer, the animal deer, like
Yeah.
a deer would jump across the road from in front of me in the middle of the day, and that was um, a symbol associated with the death of a very close loved one for me. And so I feel like the experience is through the familiar, and your
Mm.
guides work towards you in that manner. And some of that still remains a year later. Some of it has shifted because just dropping in and connecting with them has become the familiar.
Mm.
Yeah.
I love that you share this because I think it is so true. Like our guides guide with such gentleness, although some of them can have more assertive demeanors, right? Or like more direct. But there is this gentleness in that they're not going to push us in a way that is uncomfortable. It's going to unfold slowly in a way that allows our nervous system and our body to adjust to the connection
Mhm.
so that it's something we can continue opening.
Yes.
I'm For those who are already like kind of experiencing that connection, like they're like, yes, I see the numbers, I pull the cards,
Mhm.
there's animal beings that come to me. How, now that you're experiencing dropping in, right? I'm sure there's people like,
Mhm.
what are they talking about? What is dropping in? What does this mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? What do you do? Where do you feel yourself go? How do you feel? How does that connection, if you could explain to someone what that looks and feels like compared to receiving angel numbers and messages in other ways and places, how is dropping in? What is that?
So I would, for me, dropping in like a word, and I just want to be very honest about it. A word that has always like sparked a bit of nervousness for me is the word hypnosis. And it no longer does because I guess for me, my only experience with quote unquote hypnosis, I remember being a kid and my friend's mom and a few other like moms went to a hypnosis for weight loss. And so it was like in a big room, in like a conference room at a hotel. And they were saying, "Oh yeah, we were sitting in these seats, and we had our eyes closed, and the presenter was walking us through it." And I don't know, there was something about it that seemed a bit generic in that sense. And what I have come to find about dropping in is it's so deeply intimate, but you're developing a deeper intimacy with yourself. And it's kind of like sitting down to have a cup of coffee with your soul. And so when I lie down, it's just like an instant exhale and my body starts to soften. If folks, have had a Reiki treatment, I would say there's similarities there. Um, of just kind of puddling and melting like a pat of butter into this place of peace and safety and vulnerability. To be safe in vulnerability is like just for me the ultimate relaxation. And knowing there's no right, there's no wrong, there's no expectation, there's just peace, and let's see where this takes us.
Yeah, I want to start using a different word than hypnosis. Because a lot of people have that nervousness, or I'm like, I don't do your traditional hypnosis. But I think that
Yeah.
it's just, using the power of your awareness to journey beyond the mind, like beyond the conscious mind, right? And when we drop in, um, we go on these soul journeys to
Hmm.
places not of this physical dimension, but that our soul knows deeply. These are sacred places. And oftentimes when you enter them, there is this deep sense of familiarity, even if the place
Hmm.
feels unfamiliar to the mind, because it's like sometimes people have seen these places in dreams or they've already started like journeying to them in meditations, but sometimes they do feel new to the mind. But there's this deep sense of familiarity because, when you think about the spirit realm, it exists all around us, but just in another dimension. It's another dimension of awareness and frequency. And those are the places that we're opening and journeying to when we're connecting with our guides, right? We are journeying to those spaces, which allows for such a clearer, deeper connection. So,
And
how,
if I can add to that just very quickly as a
yeah,
bit of reassurance for someone who might not be familiar, I think what's interesting is it's just like maybe when we're moving through our day and just our daily activities, like our mind is turned on and it's at the forefront and it's the leader. And it's like when you drop in, your mind is still very present and very aware, but your heart, your energy starts to take over a bit more. Like when I drop in a session, I am still totally aware of things around me. I'm aware if my dog gets up and starts walking around the room or if they come to snuggle me or I can, if there's a big gust of wind outside, there is part of me that's aware that that is happening. So it's not this complete checking out. It is a very deep checking in.
a very deep checking in. Each person travels to different places. I have yet to find a common place. Everyone has these deep, unique soul places that are unique to their soul, where they go to connect with their guides, where they go for soul nourishment and rejuvenation. I believe we travel to these places in sleep. I believe we travel to them and through them between lifetimes. We travel to some powerful, beautiful, sacred spaces in these journeys when we drop in. How would you describe them and what does it feel like to be in those realms?
You're absolutely right. It feels very familiar. It feels very safe. It feels very sacred. It feels very sacred. It feels like a place that you know you have been before, and that is another home.
Mm,
It in many ways feels like a homecoming.
mm,
And I'll give the example. That word keeps coming up for me through our work, a homecoming. Um, we've done past life journeys together, and um, a few of those have been in Ireland, and my family recently traveled there. And when we got back, I told you it so often felt like a homecoming because there was a strong sense of deja vu, like, oh yeah, I've been here before. This is not the first time my feet have touched this patch of earth. And I would say when you drop in and journey, it's very similar. there's a sense of deja vu, a sense of knowing, a sense of comfort, and a sense of homecoming.
Mm, so beautiful. What surprised you about this work? Was there anything that you didn't expect or that unfolded differently than you thought it would?
I think I did not grow up in a space and a family and a community where this type of work was ever discussed or at all commonplace or anything like that, which is interesting because I always felt a connection to it. Um, so I think just like the first time I did yoga, the first time I meditated, my first Reiki treatment, um, there's the little voice of skepticism in the back of your mind. And I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it just is. And maybe the one thing that surprised me so much is how quickly and instantly that voice was quieted and has no place in this work for me anymore because it is some of the realest work and realist experiences that I've ever had. So, does that answer the question?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
My heart smiled hearing you say that. I think it's really beautiful to hear that that has been your experience. Um, and when I was so new and just early on in my own journey, and I was trying to make sense of these experiences, like I was dropping in and like guiding myself, but being guided in these journeys, but I didn't have words for it. At the time, I said I was throwing my energy. And at the time, it's like, oh, I was doing some astral projecting, but I didn't know what that word was. I'd never heard of that, and so I was like, I'm throwing my energy. But I remember, and I had no one in my life who believed any of this, who thought similarly, who had similar experiences, no community. Like my whole life is different in that regards now. Um, but I remember just like when I was trying to grapple with it, because I'd come out and I'd be trying to make sense of it and like, am I making it up or what's happening here? And I was like, it feels more real than this. What I experienced there feels more real than this. Like, I don't know how to describe it other than it feels so deeply real. And I think that
Yes.
the mind can have a lot of fear going into these experiences because it's unknown, it's new to the mind. But like once we drop in, that doubt, as you were saying, it begins to soften. It begins
Yes.
to quiet because your mind too begins to believe and cultivate a sense of trust in these experiences
Mhm.
because your mind, as you were saying earlier, you're like, I'm consciously aware the whole time. Your mind is witnessing the experiences that
Yeah.
you're having. And as you begin to witness how the guidance you receive from your guides when we drop in and the journeys you have impacts your everyday life, the mind really starts to come on board. So
And
I'm
if I could speak to that point just very quickly, Lauren, like
yeah.
my guides and my experiences and the work we've done have never been more than I am ready for at that time.
Mm,
Um, and at the same time, I don't feel like they're holding anything back that I need to know for that moment in time. But there's such a beautiful synchronicity in how the guides work with me in session, and then how I see that unfold in the time between sessions
mm.
and beyond. But it's like I in my experience, I have not ever felt overwhelmed. If anything, I have felt empowered. So
Yes.
if that also there's I think maybe the fear is that something scary is going to come up or something scary is going to happen. And I think that's maybe a big part of the fear or the questioning or the hesitancy around this work. And I have yet to experience anything like that. If anything comes up, it's just the greatest sense of comfort and empowerment and alignment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you said this because I hear this a lot. Like whether someone's connecting with their intuition or spirit guides, whatever connection they're opening there in the divine space, there's this fear of like, I'm going to be told I have to do something that I don't want to do, or I'm going to receive guidance that like, I'm not ready to do that thing. And you're right. You don't. Like when we ask, what do I need to know right now? You're going to receive what you need to know right now. And
Yes.
it is done in there's such a gentleness and a softness there because
Mhm.
your guides are guiding you in such a way that allows you to open more to life, right? There's this
Yeah.
open-heartedness that they are supporting, and fear does the opposite. Fear
Mhm.
closes the heart space.
Exactly.
So they're not gonna lead from a space that truly could, yeah, lead you into a space of fear.
And if it makes sense, I don't know how they manage it, but they do. To give something, to give guidance and to give information that is all at once very literal and very concrete and also so expansive.
Mm.
But that's so often my experience. Like it is very here, very in this moment. And then there's also space for it to expand as you integrate it back into your life.
Can you share an example of, often when we're dropping in and connecting with guides, we go in with intentions, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes we're like, we just feel a desire to connect. We're going to be open to what they have to share. But oftentimes we're moving through this human experience. There are triggers, there are places of resistance and uncertainties that come up for us that we take in as questions, like desiring to receive their guidance, their clarity, support. Can you share an example of something of an intention or a question or an uncertainty that you took to your guides and how their guidance impacted or shifted or changed things for you?
I think probably one of the most important things, it's presented as more um, of an overarching theme, particularly in this container that we're working in. But something I have wanted to do is to really um, more clearly express my thoughts and my concerns, and in a lot of ways stand up for myself in a way that I haven't done before. That I would say that that has been a desire that I've taken to my guides um, in a multitude of different ways of saying it, but that is the overarching theme. And when we put that out to them, the words and thoughts that they give back have empowered me to do so, have empowered me to really, really find a voice that I know is there, um, but I have always been afraid to tap into. And in all honesty, it probably traces back to feeling that spark as a child and being told to ignore it, being told it didn't exist. And so to bring that to them and say, I don't want to live that way anymore. I don't want to be this polite, you know, um, I don't want to be someone that just goes with the flow in a way that silences my voice. I would say the guides speak directly to that.
Mm.
And like, no, your voice is valuable. You have a purpose here. You need to follow that intuition that lives within you. It's not lying to you, and use your voice. And then that has in turn rolled into saying exactly what I'm thinking and exactly what I'm meaning, and being much more direct and confident in communications, particularly in situations that make me really uncomfortable. Um, and it can be as simple as some communication with my daughter's school principal this week, communication with our insurance salesman this morning, being like, no, this is what I want. This is what is right for me. I don't need to be swayed one way or another. This is what I know to be right and true for me and my family. Um, that isn't something I could do before our work started.
Mm,
It's really helped me to become the expert on my own life experience in this lifetime
mm,
and not handing off that power to others.
mm. There is such a profound centered power. I'm seeing like the sunbeams just in all directions, like when you embody that, right? Like your beams of light that are you, and they move out into the world so powerfully. And it's been incredible to just witness that in you.
Yeah.
Um, I often, on this side, my mind loves to understand more deeply how this work truly does create those shifts and why it does, because it's very different the guidance you receive from your guides when we're dropped into those spaces than if I even said those very same words to you, right? I've actually seen this in sessions where I will, we'll be talking through something at the beginning. And sometimes if I feel a tug to share something, I will, and I'll share something with a client. And then we drop in and their guides share something, but in different words and different cadence, but a similar theme. And it lands in a totally different way. When you think about like a therapist or a coach or a guide or someone saying something and finally
Hmm.
like you can feel the words like land in your body, they literally shift the core of who you are. They change how you view the world. And oftentimes like we'll have this knowing of like, my God, I've heard this before, but like it finally landed that
Hmm.
person's energy, their resonance, the right timing, whatever it is. Your guides are like included in your soul team, your higher self. Like that group is the greatest knower and understander of you, of like every life you've ever lived, of everything, even all the blind spots that you move through in this life with, right? And so they are able to communicate in such a way. Also, the subconscious is open when we're like dropped into those spaces. So the
Hmm.
information we receive is able to be integrated on a deep, energetic, and unconscious level so that when we do come out and open our eyes, oftentimes we feel like a different person. We begin moving through the
Hmm.
world differently. Things just start to shift and change.
Yes. Yes. And I think, we use words like shift and change. And sometimes there's a little bit of fear there. Like, what if I change too much? Like, what if this changes me too much? And my experience has been, it has changed me in all the ways I have always wanted to be. Again, it's a place where you don't need to fear because this work already lives within you. Your spirit guide team, your soul team, your higher self, they are already, in my experience, woven into who you are in this lifetime and who you are beyond this lifetime. Um, I sometimes feel like in our relationships as humans, it's hard for there not to be a self interest element. And even if it's just this teeny tiny thread with the people you love and care about the most, like there's just this, and it's a very human thing. And when you connect with your guides and then have this team, that element is totally removed. They own, in my experience, the guidance I have received is only for my highest good and well being in this lifetime. And there's such a comfort and safety in that from which you can grow and change and evolve in ways that are so filled with love and joy and contentment.
Mm. Connecting with my own guides, doing this work, it has taught me a lot about how to best be in relationship with others and support them
Hmm.
from a place of holding space, from a place of openness, not pushing, and especially like as a mother, like how, because the way our guides guide and love and support is just with such
Hmm.
unending love. There's no judgment. There is just unending support and love
Exactly.
and safety
Hmm.
there.
Yes.
You mentioned earlier, your connection with your guides shifting and changing and evolving, and how early on it was just color and like in your body you would feel the energy. Like
Hmm.
how has your connection with your guides shifted or changed over the course of this work?
Um, there's a familiarity now. there's a familiarity, and I sort of have come to understand that that each guide has a very unique role that they are fulfilling on my team. And so I sort of know if I'm struggling with something, who to lean into. For example, I think this is just a very easy to grasp example. Our entire family had flu A over Christmas this year. And I remember on my worst day of illness, we were all so tired because we had been up and down, the previous few nights, and we just needed some rest and just a full night's sleep. And I remember reaching out to kind of my most accessible guide, who is kind of like a BFF for, to really kind of humanize his energy, and saying, I just so deeply need your support to help my family sleep well tonight. I so deeply need that. Can you please help me? And he said, I have you covered. And then I have a guide that's also connected to my husband. And he assured me, this guide has your husband covered. And then I have a guide that there's a connection with my daughter. And he's like, she's covered too. We've got you. We have your back. Just go to sleep. You're all going to wake up tomorrow morning and feel much more rested. And we did. And so I think you learn just more about them. And I think it's a knowing you've maybe always had, but have just been disconnected from. So you begin to learn the ins and outs of what they do and their role on your soul team, and the role you play in your relationship with them, and how to work within that. And with that said, though, I feel like I could reach out to any member of my team and they would respond in kind.
Mm.
I would never be left hanging. Yeah.
Mm. I love that story. It is such a beautiful reflection how our guides, like, sure, we can drop in, we can have these profound journeys, we can, receive so much incredible wisdom and guidance. And also, when we call on them, they can be so deeply present in the everyday, real humaning of this experience and providing guidance and security and support there.
And if you remember too, I was nervous before my family's trip to Ireland because I was leaving another loved one here with my beloved dogs. And I was just a jittery mess, hoping it just all panned out.
Mhm.
And um, kind of my go-to guide very clearly stepped in and said, we have got this. This guide has this aspect. This guide has this aspect. You are totally covered and protected as you travel, and everything here at home is too. And the peace that brought to me in my then human experience of traveling, and I was able to just be so much more settled than I typically would be.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Oh, so beautiful. Is there anything else on your heart that we haven't talked about or shared that you'd love to share with those who are listening, with those who are curious about this work and their own connection with their divine team?
I would say if you're feeling the tug to dive into this work, it's not a mistake. It's not misplaced. Listen to that call. Um, I feel like anytime we're called to do this work that speaks to our soul. And there's so many different modalities that help to fill our cup, right? Like yoga, meditation, Reiki, connecting with your spirit guides, past life regression. If you are feeling that tug, carve out the time and space to do it. Um, I'm a busy wife and mom, and I this has been one of the most supportive and fulfilling things I've ever done for myself. Um, I so often think about the journey of, hey, going to physical therapy to support my body, and then going to counseling to support my head and my thoughts and my cognitions, and then doing Reiki to understand and support my energy, and then this work to support my soul. Um, it's never a mistake, and it's never time or resources misspent. Um, this has been one of the most valuable things I have done in my lifetime. And I can see how it will support me. I'm turning 42 next week. In the time I have left in this lifetime, I can see how this work has enriched and changed my trajectory in ways I would have never dared to hope.
Mm. Wow. It is such a gift to know you in this lifetime. It is such a gift
Likewise.
to get to know your team through you, to get to journey with you. I'm just so in awe of you and so proud of you and so honored to get to walk alongside of you. So thank you. Thank you for
Uh,
being here. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being you.
well, you're welcome. And if I can just add about and speak just for a moment about my experience working with you,
Mm.
because like I said, I've kind of been in these spaces for a long time. Um, Not this specific, past life regression and connecting with your guide space, but sort of in the know for a long time. And I think anyone who is considering working with you should know that sometimes it feels like folks in these spaces really pull in and feel compelled to share about their own experience to the point that it maybe takes away a bit from their student or their client or whatever you want to call those of us on this side of the work. And Lauren, you have such a natural gift of holding space in such an authentic way that I cannot imagine feeling anything but safe to be vulnerable in the work that we're doing. I know that everything you share is purposeful. I know that the time and the energy that you're so generously offering is coming from your heart with the intention to be in highest service of my experience. And I'm so grateful for that and for you to share your talents and gifts and wisdom with us. So
Mm.
thank you.
Thank you, my love. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. That means a lot. It really does. Hmm. I hope you felt the depth and beauty and magic in that conversation. Maybe it stirred or awakened something within you. If you were feeling that pull, like maybe this work is calling to you in some quiet yet powerful and very clear way, I would love to invite you to go deeper. And I would be so deeply honored to support you, my love. You can explore more ways to connect with your spirit guides, including free soul journeys and tapping rituals I offer through the links below. And if you're feeling ready for the kind of deep and sacred one-on-one support that guided Kelsey's journey, know that I would be so honored to walk with you and guide you. You can also learn more about working together one-on-one with me in the description below. Thank you so much for being here, my beautiful friend, for being open and for honoring your own soul's curiosity. Until next time, may you be open to experiencing more of the magic that is around you, to remembering that this life is so much more than what we can see and feel and hear and touch with our physical senses. And may you be open to feeling and sensing the powerful and gentle love and guidance of your divine team that is already there. I'll see you soon.